Ready? Call the meeting to order for our agenda prep for June 17th. Do we want to get started with our agenda? You're going to review the agenda first, please?
Yes, ma'am. Madam President, members of the board, thank you. I'll start with item 4, election of school board officers, A, B, and C it's on the agenda, and then skip down to item 7. We are not going to do an academic update. We'll give you a one-page handout.
Excuse me, I forgot to say there's 5 trustees present.
We'll do a construction update. We'll put the pictures and stuff in your packets. If you have any questions, they will be here to answer any questions. We put item 7B in budget update just so that she could do another presentation, since we'll be live streaming again, and we may have other questions that come up. Item 8A, approval of minutes for regular scheduled board meeting on May 20th, 2019, and special call board meeting on June 3rd, 2019. We'll have those for you. Item 9A, consider approval of budget amendments. We'll have item 9B, approval of easement with the city of San Marcos.
This was tabled from last time, right?
Yes.
Item 9C, consider approval of the SEMA property contract. We hope to have that. It's been pulled off because of language, but we hope to have that at some point. Item 9D is a board item. Consider approval of TASB delegate and alternate delegate for that evening. Item 9E, consider approval of 2019-2020 school board meeting calendar. I apologize, we had it, Georgianne gave it to me. We had looked it over. I think there was some questions about July that we were looking at, and then we had one correction in January because of Martin Luther King. So we had to move it to Tuesday board meeting, but I'll send that to y'all tomorrow morning so that you have a copy. Most have not changed. I think several eyes, but look at it and see if we're missing anything. And we also tried to keep it away the January from midwinter conference, because that's when a lot of administrators are going through training. Item 9F, approved bid received on trustee property account number 11-1935-1200-008-013. It's a property, I guess, that somebody wants to purchase. And just so that I can let y'all know, the city manager and I have been meeting about these properties, and I think they turned down our last one. The city council turned down because they want to have more dialogue between the county, the city, and the school district about public use or public interest. That some places may help with flood mitigation and things like that, and we have no working protocols around this.
We have a coalition that meets.
Correct.
So they could bring it to that group, and then we can bring it back here.
But I think they want an administrative coalition,
Okay.
not
Not
they
a
have
board.
the, yeah.
Not a political.
Correct, correct. And then that's it for the agenda prep. It's really not too light.
I had 2 questions.
Yes.
Yes, Ms. Cantu, thank you. It's good to be back. I just had a question on item number 4, the election of school board officers. I know several of us are traveling this month at various dates, locations, and times. I just didn't know if you, Ms. Cantu, knew or were aware if the entire board was going to be present at this meeting, and if not, as an individual trustee, confident in the current administration and leadership, I'd be fine postponing this to July, whenever a full board is seated, if some of us are traveling this month.
I only know that one trustee has told me that she will not be here in July, unless someone else is going to be
So
on.
July wouldn't be good either.
Yeah, July.
Is there anybody that's told you they won't be here for the June meeting?
I haven't heard from anyone. Have
I'll be
you?
here.
Okay, I just know a lot of us were traveling, so I wanted to make sure that all of us were.
I'm
I'm not
traveling, but
traveling.
I always consider,
but-
I'm traveling in June, but I always consider my board meetings. I mean, I
Okay.
do my travel around the board meeting. And we already know July, okay.
Okay.
2 questions. One, do we have anticipated dates for approving the budget and the tax rate? June 24th? For both? Okay. And then my other question is, we had, I think, either discussed and or approved, or I don't know, it was actually ours to approve some time ago, the city putting forth the $5,000 forgivable loan for our employees, and I wanted to know if that had been put into place, and if so, has anybody used it, and if we could just sort of get an update on that and sort of see what, like, the publicity that's gone out to teachers, or how the city has been publicizing it, and
We'll get you that. We actually just got something from them last week. We've had 8 teachers use it.
that's great. So if we could just include that in part, maybe the superintendent's report or some point, I think that would be helpful to know. Thanks.
Ms. Cantu, I have one more
Mis-
question.
Mr. Arredondo?
Thank you, Ms. Cantu. Yes, Mrs. Griffith, I guess the question I have regarding the budget and the proposed date of the public hearing, what is the statutory deadline for us to approve that? July 1st. So just any. Okay, gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Ms. Hanson?
Will we be conducting Michael's, Mr. Cardona's summative evaluation in June?
We can,
Because that's the renewal date for his
yes.
contract.
We'll
I
have
can
to,
work on it.
you and I can get
Yeah,
on
I can
it.
work on it. I can get all the data.
Thank you for bringing that up, Ms. Hanson.
So, sorry, when do we get the final scores, though?
We're getting them piecemeal as they're coming right now, but yeah.
You'll have a presentation in August.
So shouldn't we postpone the evaluation until we have the scores? I thought that's what we were trying to tie it to in part.
I'm okay waiting until August. If the rest of the board is okay waiting until August. Whatever
think-
y'all's
I
pleasure.
mean, I thought that's what we were using to evaluate your performance, and if we don't have those metrics, it seems
Then it's-
a little
yeah.
To
preemptive.
when in
but-
August?
August.
Right. Well, whichever set of data you set up your expectations on are the ones that we should be evaluating you on, whether or not it's the snapshot or whether or not it's the comprehensive. So,
It's based on all students or?
It is based on all students.
Yeah, similarly, I'd like to have the most complete information available to give the most thorough and robust evaluation of the superintendent.
So was the board in favor of moving his evaluation until August? Is that what I'm hearing?
No?
No? You wanna do
When
it
in
in-
August would we have this completed? I mean, because I'm thinking end of August, which would mean September. That's a long postponement for his evaluation.
Probably by the 3rd week, right? We do our report.
Will that give you time?
Yeah, we're getting it filled in, so I can, as we're going up, we changed it up a little bit, so
Just
it'll
don't
be easier for y'all to
procrastinate,
read.
Michael.
Yeah. We'll have it.
So,
I mean, that seems to me
July
like
or-
that'd be an appropriate time to evaluate the past year based on the most comprehensive scores available, and also at the same time set your goals and objectives for the coming year. But
But we've done the past evaluations in June.
We have, but this, August is fine, because we'll have more finalized data.
so then I hear the majority of the board says wait till August. Wait till August. You'd rather do it in June?
I still prefer to move it. But
That's when his contract renews.
He signed his new
We're just talking
contract and
about-
he's been renewed already.
Just
I
something
know, but that's the renewal.
Kathy.
date.
Just that potentially needs to be addressed at some point.
Anything else?
No?
When the first item that we want to take up after having gone through the agenda is regarding the July board meeting. Since the administration returns to central office the second week in July, which currently we have scheduled the agenda prep for that Monday. I was talking to Mr. Superintendent, Mr. Cardona, about possibly not having an agenda prep in July and just having a meeting in July, giving them that week to prepare for the regular meeting and forego the agenda prep. What do y'all say about that?
Do we even need a July meeting?
I think we could go with that one, but Mr. Cardona says we have people to hire, that we have to replace some people, and we'd need to get them in place before August. So we'd have to have a meeting, and could be a brief meeting just with hires and basic information
So
on it.
what date would that be?
15th?
For Jan, do you have a date for July of the regular meeting, not the agenda prep? Y'all come.
I have an invitation
It's
from Mike
July
for the
15th.
15th. Yeah.
July 15th?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we'll just do away with, or cancel the agenda prep? I'm sorry?
Cancel the
It-
July 8th agenda prep.
Cancel agenda prep, and let's just have our regular board meeting.
We'll send it to them without that.
Yes. And the next item that we have, discussion on board operating procedures. I think we had some comments and we tabled it and said we would take it up at workshop. So here we are, ready to discuss our board operating procedures. All of the changes on page 9 and page 10 are in red, and I know everybody's had a chance to look at it, review it, talk about it, make your notes. So we need to decide how we're going to correct this. I don't think that we need to keep sending it to Juan Cruz and pay him X amount of dollars per hour when we're capable of making the changes ourselves. Mr. Redondo, did you want to start?
Yeah, yes, ma'am. Thank you, Ms. Cantu. So I guess the way that I look at the discussion of board operating procedures and the discussion regarding governance training as two very similar and connected items. I know that I think the proposal is in front of us today to talk about social media and some other things of that nature. But I think in regards to us updating the way in which we conduct ourselves and the way we conduct business, I think these two items would, it'd be beneficial for them to take place together. I think maybe a comprehensive review of board operating procedures during governance training is something that we should consider versus just looking at this one single issue. Throughout the past year, I think there's been a quality and robust conversation about the purpose of agenda preparation meetings, trustees or the administration putting items on an agenda after that agenda preparation meeting takes place. So I don't think it's just this one item that should be discussed in regard to board operating procedures. So I think it'd be advantageous for us to look at them as a whole versus just this one additional segment being inputted into them. I'm not against the addition of this proposal, but I think we should look at it, you know, if we're opening the book,
As
we might
part
as
of
well
the
look at the
whole.
entire
Part of
book,
the whole, yeah.
not just this one section. So as an individual trustee, I'm open and my schedule is available to do that in regards to governance training, which we're required to do anyway. But I think this would be a good opportunity for us to discuss that and other issues.
Okay.
I agree with Mr. Arredondo, and because I'm unsure of why we're even considering this new policy, it seems to me confusing as to what precipitated it, why we didn't have this in when we did this whole operating procedure comprehensively a year ago. It seems very piecemeal. It seems out of context. These rules or these guidelines, frankly, don't even look like they really pertain to school boards, and they don't really seem to me to recognize the way in which social media currently functions in our culture. So I'd rather take it as a more comprehensive conversation.
I think that our board operating procedures has turned into a work in progress. As we work on it, as we find something we need to correct, we correct it. But I think it's a good idea to take it up with governance training, and because I have it on the agenda as a recommendation for us to do something that the state has asked us to do, and we'd have to come up with a date, which is the next topic. Did we have any other comments on the board operating procedures before we move into the governance training and a possible date for that?
Yeah, I just was unclear on the history. Is this something that Juan brought us, or something that was requested by administration to put together a social media policy, or something requested by a trustee of Juan to put together? How did this start? I'm asking because I don't know.
This is not administration stuff.
Okay, so President Cantu, is this something that we requested of Juan Cruz, or what was the genesis of member decorum and social media policy coming to us?
I don't remember what specific board member requested it, but I know that it came to me that we needed to request a modification of our operating procedures. I don't remember what specific person asked me, but I requested him to do this based on a request from board members.
Okay. Well, I probably am not gonna like it any more at governance training than right now. I mean, 3 through 7, just to me, I mean, and if we wanna open it up at governance training, I'm not opposed to that. I'm not in a hurry to do this, but I'm gonna have the same reservations about, frankly, my free speech then that I have now. And I don't even, so I guess that's my position on it. If y'all want to wait, I'll just hold my thoughts on it until we deal with it more robustly, but I'm kind of with,
Yeah.
I don't want to put words in Ms. Halsey's mouth that she said this wasn't really necessary, but.
I mean, I really feel like the operating procedure in this regard should be professional, be respectful, and do your job. And that's really, the rest of it is discretionary. It's very subjective.
Right.
Social media just, it entails a lot of different things that are not even included in some of these lists. And I think it really, the responsibility lies on each of us to be responsible and do our jobs. And how we do that is, every person is going to decide that is different for themselves, so.
Yeah, I think the member conduct already outlined in the operating procedures applies to us when we're on social media as it applies to us when I'm walking in the street. And so there don't need to be additional restrictions on those who might be active in these specific forums, or more broadly, whatever we define as social media. It's the same. We're not supposed to discuss things with the quorum of the board. We're not supposed to, and obviously normal things like be professional. But some of this is way more specific, like nothing in our present operating procedures forbids us from doing some of these things, but now there would be a new rule that I would potentially, be in violation of for using my single social media account in what I think is in general a responsible way. So that's where I am.
Ms. Hanson, any comments?
No?
I just think, one, we need to maybe just summarize what not to do on social media,
And that would cover it?
and add it to wherever else you're talking about that, how we're supposed to act, then that includes social media too. You said, there's also all the different things that says how to act as a board member, and what we're supposed to do and not supposed to do. We're not supposed to discuss any issues that we have as far as the board. We don't represent ourselves as the board. We're only one person.
Right.
Yeah, but
So those
nobody
kind
does.
of things.
But-
And it applies to social media as as it applies.
Right.
But look for Ms. Viapano, for example, number 3 says should clarify communications are being made as an individual board member and not as an official district spokesperson. Well, I'm not an official district spokesperson, and I don't need to, before I make any statement, have an additional clarification of something that's a fact. I am not a district spokesperson. Now, I can't tell from reading this alone if it would be enough in my bio for me to say opinions not those of SMCISD, or if in each individual post I would have to, in order to comply with this policy, have some sort of standard. Now, this is not the opinion of the district or the board when nobody thinks it is. So I
Right,
just,
I agree.
I mean, I agree with you. I shouldn't speak on your behalf or on behalf of the board, and I try to never do that on social media or anywhere else. But that's already a policy, right? So when they try to fit what's already a policy into this new social media policy, it's a poor fit, and I don't even know how to comply with it. I mean, I want to comply with the rules that we all agree to, and I'm telling you, there's several of these that I couldn't. So I'm supposed to avoid communication which may be perceived as a predetermination on a pending board matter. I have no idea why that would be in there. Sometimes I might have a perfectly valid reason to communicate that I have predetermined my position on an upcoming agenda item. I mean, if it's a terrible idea for the district, I'm probably going to tell everybody I see that I think this is a terrible idea for the district. I think we're going to go bankrupt, or I think we're going to do whatever. I have the ability to do that and communicate that in a free way with the constituents and with others in the community so that we can collectively come to a good decision. The same way that right now people communicate in advance of their position. You know, I might say at agenda prep, "Oh, I don't know about that," or one of my colleagues might say it. Well, it's the same. I don't understand why that would even be in there. I don't. So I don't know. I could sound off forever. It doesn't sound like there's really votes to adopt it today. If we want to push it to the governance, that's cool. Or I'd be fine if it just died. Not to predetermine my position. That's where I am.
I'm absolutely in favor of it dying. I'll have a really hard time and probably will not abide intentionally by a lot of these things if it's, sort of forced into being, because I think some of them, like the determination, the Supreme Court has a really difficult time determining what is lewd, obscene, or otherwise inappropriate, and I'm not sure that this body can really make that determination for any individual. I post poems frequently on my social media accounts that some people might like, other people might not like, but there's a matter of artistic interpretation there, and I certainly don't want that subjected to anybody's definition of whether or not it's appropriate for me to post in social media. So I would be okay with including, if we need to specifically write social media into another area of the policy so that we say that behavior in this area is expected in the same, and behavior in this arena also, I'm fine to include something like that, but I really have a problem with almost everything here except for rule number 1, so.
Basically, where it says number 5, member decorum and social media policy, that could be the statement that covers that. Members will maintain decorum using social media. If you wanted to really shorten it.
Yes, but at some point you wonder why you're still doing it. Like if it's okay.
Anybody else? Okay, let's talk about government.
So what are we doing with it?
Sounds like we're tabling it until we can take care of the next item, which is discussion regarding governance training.
So is this actually our required team building training? Is that what you're talking
Yes.
about? Okay. So I think it should be listed as team building.
Team building. I'm going to be open to dates. July is probably not going to be a good date. June is going to be a very quick month, but we could look at June or we could look at August.
Would this, Ms. Cantu, take the place of us needing to attend the San Antonio, event?
Legislative?
Since,
Does this provide this
Since the-
training hours that were adequate?
right, we've got credits we have to earn, and I saw this as an opportunity to get those credits. We all get them at the same time. Bring somebody from TASB and we.
Save the district
here,
money?
Yeah, as a group, save some money. I know Margie and myself and Ms. Halsey have canceled going to SLI and trying to conserve money. but we would have to spend money on the training, and I can get Ms. Logue to call TASB and see when we could get someone, and I don't know if y'all are better in June, or would you be willing to wait till August? 'Cause
I'd prefer to wait till
everybody's-
August or early September. June is already just very
I've
busy
got a
for
lot
me at this
booked in
point,
June
so, and I'm
myself.
not gonna be available in July, but I'm totally amenable to doing this. I think it's terrific. I've seen some of the, various training modules, and I think it would be really helpful, really useful for us. I like the idea of being able to save the district some training expenses and get it done at the same time with everybody. I'm assuming we'd also have to get a legislative update in the fall that will, then we could do something like that, maybe with Region 13, like we've done in the past. So I'm super amenable to that.
So we'll instruct Ms. Logue to help us find a date for August. Oh, Ms. Viapando?
In reference to legislative, the legislative update, Mr. Cardona, do you know, do they usually call to use our library? I know we've been here several years,
Yes,
for
them
that.
last time.
Mm-hmm.
several times.
For the
They will call us.
so we could do a legislative update in August.
No, it's usually
Because
September or
September.
October,
Oh.
because they have to prepare.
Well, that would also
What
help
to
us
tell
with
us.
our hours. That'll also help us with our hours and not having to go off and.
Mm-hmm. Because those are required also.
Mr. Redondo?
Thank you, Ms. Cantu. Yes, just to echo the comments made by Trustee Halsey, if there's any way that we can not only satisfy our team of 8 training, but also the legislative update, and I'm going to bring this up during our budget workshop, is if we can essentially stop, or I guess prevent any reason for trustees to have to travel and to expend those funds, I'm going to ask that the board's budget for travel be absorbed into the district's general fund for this upcoming budget year, because obviously the writing is on the wall that we're going to have to be making some difficult decisions in 2019 and 2020. So if we can all satisfy every training requirement in this one evening, whenever that date is, based on Ms. Logue working with the trustees, and I would like to achieve that. I don't know if the support from my colleagues is going to be there to do that, but that is going to be one thing that I propose during tonight's budget workshop. So,
I had already told Mr. Cardona to start looking at our budget and cut wherever we could in terms of our travel.
and I think it starts up here at the dais.
After we had that budget presentation, I thought we need to do our share and set the example. Ms. Yapando?
The only thing about that, about combining the two trainings is that the legislative update, they invite the surrounding school
Oh, yeah.
districts. And, that would be a very long night.
Yeah.
I'm fine with them
Those
being
have to
two
be
separate.
We can
separated.
have two.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
those-
whatever is the cheapest.
We'd have both of 'em, yeah.
I'm not, again, proposing anything to be set in stone and enacted upon, but I'm gonna make that request and motion during our budget workshop about travel.
And it's a good motion, thank you. We had already,
Hands in hand.
Ms. Cancer?
Could we
I'm sorry,
ask
Ms.
whoever's
Hanson?
doing the team building governance training, bring some other board operating from other districts' procedures?
It's a good idea.
And also, I'll say that I think that the Summer Legislative Institute, Leadership Institute, even though I'm having a difficult time with the title of it, is always a really helpful and interesting training session. But the fact that we don't have any new board members and we all have several years of experience seems to me that we can forego it, certainly, this year.
Well, MASPA's free in San Antonio next year.
Yes, it is.
It's always free.
Yeah, MASBA's free, so we can always go to MASBA and commute instead of
Mhm.
staying. I mean, we can go up for one day and
Ms.
that'll help us.
Cantu,
Yes.
and this might be something that Superintendent Cardona might be more familiar with. When I read this item discussion regarding governance training, I know there's a very robust, and I would even say intimate, thorough training that TEA does, and that is at least what my assumption was when I read this as governance training. So I didn't know if that was what the intent of this item was, and I think Trustee Halsey has referenced it before, but I think it was
team building.
Fort Worth ISD who just recently went through this governance training. So anyway, I just wanted to tee that up to get more information.
They are different,
Yeah.
so Lone Star governance training is 2 full days, 8 hours, that all 8 members have to commit to going to. It's very intimate. And then it does require that after you go through training that your board meetings run a certain way. Really just focusing on academics and getting rid of all the other stuff. 50% of your meetings, and board members have to track their time. It's an in-depth, about half the districts in the state have gone through it. So it's gonna become mandated. It's coming, so.
It's also, if you do it voluntarily though, don't you get exceptions to several things? Like, I thought there were,
I don't know.
I think there are some incentives to do it anyway, but.
They're clamping down on District of Innovation, the schedules and all that stuff. This really is about board governance and the way your meeting should be operating.
I'd be open to that. I think it might address some of the board operating procedure conversations and discussions as well. But that is just my
But
opinion.
it is 2 full days.
Heard that the first.
Yeah, that's gonna be
8
hard
hours a
for
day.
all of us to be able to pick 2 full days to attend. I mean,
Most boards have, some boards, I say most, some boards have done it on Saturday, Sunday.
I mean, we generally do 2 full
Sunday,
days.
Monday.
Most of us do 2 full days in San Antonio, so.
When we go to SLI, we go on Saturday and Sunday.
I can get information on a smorgasbord of dates that if you'd be interested, but
Yeah, well, I mean, I know historically, like Ms. Halsey said, some of us, when we go to TASB, we'll leave that Thursday and be up there Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So I think 2 full days of, governance training to streamline the efficiency of our meetings and, stay student-centered would be training well received.
Thank you.
and also find out what happens if we don't have 8.
you don't get credit and you lose your money.
So it has to
You
be,
have to
it's
be
a
there.
serious
How much is
commitment.
it?
I'll get all that information. But I know the requirement is everyone has to be there, all in.
I'm certainly willing to do it, but I also understand it's difficult to schedule, but I do my very best to make it happen, so.
I'll get y'all the packet that has,
The
description.
information, okay.
But would that count as team building?
I think it does.
yes, it gives you credit.
Because
for it.
they're TEA certified people that do the trainings and.
There's about 12 people in the state that can do the training, plus the deputy commissioner, AJ Crapbill, who does the training.
I'd like for us to look at doing the shorter one first, make sure we have that done. And then, set up, if
So
we
you-
wanna see as a board to do the 2 days.
So you prefer the team building and then the governance training
No,
combined?
it's called team building, but governance can be the team building training.
Okay,
That TA calls whatever training you do together as team building. It can be about any kind of subjects, but I'd like to look at setting this one up first and the other 2 days possibly, because for me, it'd be taking off work, using my vacation time.
Ideally, Ms. Cantu, and just to clarify, because I would not be able to take off work, I would be fine and applicable doing it on a Saturday, Sunday, in the
I would have
exact same
problem with
way that
Sunday.
we spend our weekends at TASB and at MOSBA. I think a Saturday and Sunday is.
I would have problems with Sunday.
Maybe they've broken it up to Saturday, Monday, Saturday, Thursday. I'll find out.
I'm open to anything that can accommodate the schedules of my colleagues.
thank you. And that was a discussion I wanted so that we could make some movement forward on this, our training hours. We're ready for the budget. Any further comments? We're ready for the budget workshop. Karen, take it away. That one's mine. This one's mine. This is my budget over here.
Okay, so just want to give you a little update of where we are from House Bill, Senate Bill 3. So first thing, we have new rollback rates. So what that means for the district is our M&O tax rate is going to change. We're currently at $1.06, and so with the compression being at $1, so what that looks like for the district is your M&O. Remember, your tax rate is divided into 2 portions, your M&O portion and your INS portion. So this just affects your M&O portion. So it's going from $1.06 to 99 cents for San Marcos CISD. So instead of being taxed at $1.06, the new tax rate will be 99 cents for the taxpayer starting in October. Also, we're going to have value compression at 2.5%. I'm not sure exactly how this is going to work, but what they're saying is that, so from now on, when you see your values that come, the district is only going to be, the district will only be able to get 2.5% of the valuation. So I'm not sure if you now have two valuations. You'll have a taxable valuation and then a homestead valuation. I do not know right now what that's going to mean for the district, so we're still waiting for some clarification on the 2.5 compression. Yes.
So I understand that to mean that for school district purposes, my appraised value cannot go up more than 2.5%. But is that the sole meaning, or does that mean our total as a district value can't go up more than 2.5%? Like when we bring in new properties or commercial properties or things like that.
I don't know the answer, but as soon as I do know the answer, I'll be able to give that to you.
You're going to training Wednesday?
Wednesday.
It'd be way more oppressive if our total value for as a district could not grow by more than 2.5%, because that would mean in a high growth district like ours, we would have to compress current rates, and I couldn't, from the coverage, I could not really make out which it was. One I was a little afraid of, 2.5% on value year over year for a given property. That's not that intimidating, but you don't know as we stand here.
Do not know the answer to that. Third thing is the new allocation of the tax rate. That is for the compression, that's your golden pennies and your copper pennies. So under the current model, you remember that we have a compression rate of $1, and then you get 6 pennies on top of that, which you call your golden pennies. And when you're so what happens when you're being calculated for recapture, those golden pennies are not calculated in the tier 2 calculation for recapture, but anything from $1.07 to $1.17 is what you call your copper pennies, and those are subject to recapture. So under the current model, they have that allocation, and now it's being changed because of the new compression rate of how they're going to calculate between the golden pennies and the copper pennies. That's changing as well. The fourth thing is going to be the new tier 1 calculations. They're putting all the factors now in there of how they're calculating, giving us more weight for all the different programs and stuff that we do in the district. The calculation of recapture, they're saying that's going away. It's going to be phasing out over the next couple of years. I do not understand how that's going to work, and I'm going to training on Wednesday, so hopefully the next time I see you, I'll have more information to share with you. And then, of course, the mandated raises. In just a few minutes, I'm also going to give you, TASBO on Friday sent us out some information on all this, House Bill 3 and the interpretation. So I'm going to hand that to y'all out so that y'all can take for homework and read. And see what y'all get out of that as well. But like I said, I'll be going to a training on Wednesday, and so hopefully get some more of these questions answered. I know that they're still working through the bill, so there still will be changes, so we can anticipate that. I'm sorry I don't have more information, but that's all I have for today to base a budget upon for June 30th. Okay? So, I did give you all a copy of this. This is the first page. I wanted to talk about the mandated raises. So basically what they're telling for House Bill 3 is that 30% of the increase that we're getting on the M&O has to go for teacher pay raises, or for pay raises for the district. Of that 30%, 75 of that must be for the teacher with a differential rate between 0 through 5 and 6 through 25, or however the district can computed that, and the rest go to the remaining personnel. So we took into account this when we're going to go into the next couple of slides when we talk about raises for the district. So just so you know, we are going to be mandated to give raises, so we have to factor this in on top of the deficit budget that we're fixing to talk about. Okay, so what does this mean for San Marcos CISD? Okay, on May 6th, I brought y'all a projection. okay, and that was based on higher rates, on the higher rates as projected, and we did have two, based on House Bill 3 and also the current law. Okay, so we did get good news that our appeal was accepted, and so for 1 year we go back to the lower rates. So this makes our June 3rd projection look a little better than what it would have been under current law, but still we have a deficit budget. So if you want to go through this, if you look at the proposed House Bill 3, it looks like the revenue actually went down for local revenue, but it didn't, because remember, it was overstated this year. Values were overstated this year, and so our M&O that we're collecting is overstated by 3.9 million. Also, this new, the 6.4 million also includes going in at the 99-cent tax rate. So it looks like it's smaller, but it's not. We're actually getting more money like the state projected. And when you compare that to the current law, you'll see that the district is getting a benefit. It's just not the way that people interpreted that we're getting this additional $4 million. We technically did. We did gain about $6 million. We're just not getting it the way you think we're going to get it. Does that make sense?
Confused.
So I have one question.
How
So
are we gonna get it?
I lost you.
it's the 107 that dropped to 99 cents, correct?
The what?
It's the 107 that,
$1.06.
106.
106 that dropped to 99. Okay.
Correct. Okay, so as we look at, okay, I'll try and explain this a different way. As we move to revenue, we're basically reaching the top of our cup, okay? So we've reached the top of our cup and we're not getting any more revenue. With the House Bill 3, what that did is kind of take the top of that cup and move it up just a little bit higher, okay? So we're not, we were at an 8-ounce cup and we kind of moved to a 12-ounce cup, so it gave us a little more room, but we're still at the top of the cup. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it increased the recapture ceiling.
Yes. Yes, if you want to put it that way, yes.
And lowered what we're collecting in local revenue.
Right.
Yeah.
So combined.
So basically, they're giving
created
us back our money.
A few years of room.
Okay? Okay, so then we move on to expenditures, okay? You'll see that we went back and as we said in the last, at the last meeting, that we're gonna go back and look at some of those positions. We did go back and attrition some positions to try and get our base salaries a little higher. You do remember that we are adding an elementary, so we did approve additional positions, but we did try and also take attrition some positions, so no one lost. We just absorb some of these as people were leaving and retiring, or they moved to grants and stuff. We just attrition the position, and we're going to do without. So we have attritioned an RTI coordinator position, an instructional coach, a hall monitor, a counselor, 8 teaching positions, and an AP position at the high school. So we were able to look at that as we did move teachers to Rodriguez without adding all that, as I brought to you. So as far as salaries are concerned, I think we're doing a good job trying to keep status quo and keep that at a minimum. I think we probably can still look at that going forward, and hopefully we'll grow our district. So with the numbers, our student counts will increase, so that will also help us to gain a little bit more money. So as you can see, we did a little bit better as far as total expenditures. So if you're comparing what I brought you on May 6th to today's projection, we went from a 6.9 to a $5 million deficit. So that's about a $1.9 million credit in just a month. Yes?
Thank you, Mrs. Griffith. Apologize if I'm missing this in the handout. You listed several positions that are being absorbed by the district through attrition. Is that in our handout?
No, it's not. She just gave these to me before we came to the meeting, so I'll send those to you. I just didn't have time to.
Okay, that's
Then
fine. I just
call
wanted
them
to
out
make sure
again
that I
slower.
wasn't missing it. Is there any possible way, I don't know how long this budget workshop is going to take, if someone can go make copies of whatever that is, even if it's written on like a cocktail napkin?
I'll tell you what, I'll send it to you. Do you mind if I just email it to you in the morning?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
fine.
Because, yeah, it is kind of just on my chicken scratch. Okay, so we, and then remember at the last one, the non-recurring was all of the construction projects that we had in place. So we were able to reduce that from 5.6 million down to the 1.3, and that is for the CDC, and then the bottom drainage that we did already commit to with the city as far as, so that is included in those numbers to roll forward. So that leaves us right now at a deficit budget overall of almost 6.4 million. Okay, so now we need to talk about raises to add on top of this deficit
That's
budget.
not in there now.
Right.
Where's the 6.4 on there?
At the very bottom where it says net change in fund balance, at the very
I
bottom.
see 12.
You're looking at, are you in May or June?
The middle column.
I'm looking in the middle column. Net change in fund balance.
Or do you have May's or June's?
I have whatever she.
May, that's May 6th.
Okay.
So if you go to
the June one.
Oh, thank you.
I'm sorry. Okay, so, the next, slide that that you have in your packet, 'cause I know you can't read my slide, is general pay options for 1920. So what we did is we gave you kind of like, we did an à la carte, so we can kind of look at these and the board can determine. So you'll see in A, B, and C, that's for all of our teachers, nurses, librarians, and counselors. And so the first step A is what was recommended from the state. So that was the state recommendation. So basically that attributes to about 3% for 0 to 5, and from 6 and above, that's about a 4% increase. And then I give you the dollar amount, which is the pay raise would be $1,562 and then $2,113. Option B just gave them a little bit more. The difference is the same, the 550 between the two, 0 to 5 and 6 and above. So that gives basically a 3.2 or a 4.2. And then option C, which is 1,800 and 2350, which is a 3.5% or a 4.5% increase for teachers.
A is required.
It's a minimum, as what was interpreted.
But if we gave A, we would be in compliance with our obligations under
Correct.
HB3.
So maybe I misunderstood it, but I thought that I read that the state requirement could also be satisfied by providing compensation in the form of health care contributions.
And I have that down on the bottom,
Okay.
the premium.
But
For
that,
this
but that
year?
can go toward the
Yes,
total
that can.
percentage,
Yes, that can.
right? Okay.
Okay, so the next one is the administrators, principals, assistant principals, and directors. So what we did is we went ahead, when we were looking at them, the averages of those are above the six years of experience. So we went ahead and matched it to the teachers to try and avoid as much compression as we could, since we just worked on those over the last, and so that attributes based on where your midpoint is between a 2.6 and a 3%. For E is a 2.8 to a 3.2, and F is a 2.9 to a 3.4. So if you're above the minimum, which is the $70,000 mark, the lower the percentage is for you. And so the lower you are, but the higher percentage that you get of, based on that. That's how the calculation is, but everybody would get the same amount in these three calculations. Does that make sense?
I mean, every administrator in D would receive a $2,113 raise, no matter what their earnings are.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And when you say we just worked on compression, last year we worked on teacher compression. This is a separate issue you're talking about, where
Right, but we
you're
also
worried if you don't pay administrators enough, they might just want to stay teachers.
Right, and we also, if you don't remember, we worked on also assistant principals and principals.
Yeah, but wouldn't this compress the administrator scale by offering someone who makes, I don't know, $100,000 a $2,000 raise, and someone who makes $60,000 a $2,000 raise?
Yes, but I think what we're doing is focusing mainly on the middle category, which is going to be our assistant principals and principals, and trying to make sure that we are looking at that category to make sure that we have people who want to leave from teachers to go into those, to become assistant principals and principals, because we do need those leadership positions. And so yes, the further up on the scale you go, the less that's gonna attribute to you, but we're just trying to bring something that's affordable and somewhat fair. I mean, but I'm open to suggestions if y'all have anything else that y'all wanna do based on, you know, we can do that. I was just trying to give you something to think about, to bring forward.
I should look at this total cost column as additional deficit, right? Because we're currently at negative
Yes,
6.9, so if we do option A, we're gonna go to 6.9 plus 1.4, so negative 8.3. And then if we do this, another 300,000, 8.6, and if we do the other one, another, so $9 million. If we choose the least expensive of each of these options, we're about 9.1 million in the red.
yeah, it'd be about, yes.
Single year. Okay.
Ms. Cantu.
Mr. Redondo.
Thank you, Ms. Cantu. Mrs. Griffith, I believe that this is going to be between you and Dr. Baez. In regards to our salary scale, I know your predecessor had mentioned that some school districts have a hiring scale or a salary schedule that, you know, stops at 18. I think our school district goes to 25, if not even higher in some of those categories. Does that practice and policy impact the way in which we do these types of decisions as well? The fact that that scale goes to so many years? It did, and I guess, again, this, I get, as I try and clarify, or I guess just elaborate, is having that scale that high add to the compression when it comes to administrators, when they start catching up, when teachers, classroom teachers start catching up to assistant principals and that level, that we
Yes.
go that high?
Yes.
As an individual trustee, I would like the administration and the board to have some type of conversation if we do not want to essentially have to make a decision in several years to fix compression at an administrative level like we did with teachers. I'd like human resources and whatever position employees that needs to look at that situation, look into that situation, because I assumed that that has an impact on that compression that Mrs. Griffith is talking about.
I don't follow. What?
So we have a teacher
Yeah, like
salary
30
scale that,
steps or something.
yeah.
So you're 38.
So
38.
that 38th step, and whenever we fix that for that teacher, they start passing assistant principals. So the fact that we do that, we're gonna have the conversation of how do we accommodate toward assistant principal isn't making less than a classroom teacher on their campus. Which if we're fine with, then we're fine with. I just want us
I'm
to
fine.
I thought we
acknowledge
had that conversation
in
when
the
we,
budget process.
when we did that and decided we were fine with it because we,
Well, as we go into a $10 million budget deficit, I just want us to reaffirm that
Okay.
we are fine with it if we're fine with it.
I mean, every AP I've ever seen the resume of didn't teach for 30 years. They like taught for a few years and then they decided to move on. I think you've got a different person in those two roles and they're not competing for the same talent. But that's just me.
well, I think it also was, we want to make sure that we're also incentivizing, for lack of a better word, people to stay in teaching and not the only way that they can make more money is to move into administration, so.
Except that it's only a hiring scale. So if they, it's like,
True.
this is just if we have a 35-year teacher that we're bringing onto the district.
But we don't,
Right.
we don't put them at 35. They come in at 15. is that
25.
25?
believe
Okay.
so, yeah.
They don't come
25, and
in.
then they just get whatever raise we give annually. They don't move up
Yeah, 'cause
to
you're
that
done.
number.
You're through moving.
So as a hiring scale, it's really only, the numbers after 25 don't matter at all.
Right, if they're with the district, okay, so if you've been with us, so you never left San Marcos and you're here 38 years, you're gonna get the 38-year mark, cause every year you get the raise and we don't change you. However, if you were at Hayes and you have 38 and you're coming into San Marcos, you're gonna come in as a 25-year teacher and then move your way back up again. But you'll be paid at a 25-year teacher.
I think it's important to reward those teachers that choose to stay. And when you look at most time, even a 38 is not gonna make more than an AP because the assistant principal and principals have a lot more days than a teacher's required. So, you know, it, to me, is gonna be kinda rare to have that happen. But I don't want our teachers saying, you know, they're not gonna pay me more, so why should I stay? I had one actually contact me several years ago, probably about 3 or 4, and say, you know, if I'm not gonna make any more money, why would I continue doing this, you know, if I'm just stuck?
I apologize. I'm going to have to leave for a family obligation, but I just want to make sure that I understand this, and I'll follow up with you afterwards. So for the A through B, that raise would be actually a percentage, correct? Or it would be this dollar amount?
It would be the dollar amount.
So every teacher in scenario A, every teacher with 0 to 5 would receive that $1,562. And okay, and then the same is true for D through F. No, that's the percentage.
No, I only
right,
gave you
okay.
the percentage so you could see it on the side, but we're, on all these pay raises, we're giving you a dollar amount. So
Okay,
either
but there's a
dollar
range of
amount or-
percentage. My confusion is because there's a range of percentages with the administrators, but there's no range with the teachers.
Well, yes, it's a percentage of an increase because all teachers are on the same, pay scale. There's only one, but when you look at administrators, you have AP1, AP2, AP3, AP4, you know, we have 8 steps. So you have different min, and max in all of those. So I had to give you a range. Same thing in, the paraprofessionals because we have several.
Gotcha. Okay. And the
teachers
same
are
with
all-
paraprofessionals then. Okay, got it.
Sorry, the confusion.
But, so my follow-up question is, the insurance premium, how would that work in?
We could either do it one of 3 ways. First way, we can, you can give them the match, and that be part of, in addition to this. Or B, we can take, they were getting $15.62, subtract $11 from that and still pay it from here so you combine the coverage. Or C, they just cover the $11, you make that cost, plan one, $11 for any employee, so.
And so does the $11 cover the increase in cost of TRS to the?
That's the cost this
And
year
so
in
this
Plan
would-
1, just to Plan 1.
But it's
So-
per month, right?
Yes, per month.
121.
And the $132,000 would cover the cost of that increase for all employees for the full year?
Yeah, we have about 1,000 employees that are on the TRS active plan.
We already cover the
Right.
other amount.
Yes, we cover the 360.
Yeah, so this would just be an addition, so that other portion is already reflected in there.
Mrs. Cantu,
Yes, Mr.
thank you. So as I try and just make like a notation here as we do this math, so as of right now, Mrs. Griffith, we're projecting a budget deficit without being in compliance of the state mandated raises for employees at the $6.9 million amount that's on, the 5.039 amount, correct?
Cor- 6.3, yes. Almost 6.4 million, yes.
So we're looking at the May 6th, not the June 3rd.
Yeah, the June 3rd.
We're looking at the June
Okay,
3rd.
639, okay.
6.392
Yeah, so we would add the,
on top of that.
would add the raise deficit to that deficit.
It's a little
The
confusing.
1.4 in option A, I understood we had, so we're getting some additional money, even though our tax rate is lower, they just found some, and we're gonna get it just this one time. And the 1.4, is that 30% of the additional money we're getting?
Yes, the way that they're calculating it, yes.
So you've taken the additional money and calculated the options for us,
In here, yes,
the chart, this one.
yes.
The one thing I'm confused, another thing I'm confused about from the media coverage of House Bill 3, and I don't know that we even know all these answers, is there was this like celebration about covering pre-K, but there's still a half hit in the calculation, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in what way did they cover it?
They call it an early reading allotment, and so they're giving us credit from kinder through third grade. They're giving us for all our LEP and socially economic disadvantaged children. They're giving us a factor for all those kids in K through 3. And so basically that addition, they're saying, is offsetting the half-day program.
Do we only get that money if we do pre-K, or is that money we get no matter what?
It's
I don't know the
I mean,
answer
we're not
to
getting rid
that.
of pre-K, but I understood that to just be money that was in the formula. They're not checking, like, do you have high-quality pre-K? Now we're giving you this additional money.
They're mandating, I think, full-day pre-K.
Yeah, they are mandating the full
To
day,
get the
but I don't
money.
know if you don't offer.
You don't have to provide full day pre-K.
Yeah, I don't know if you don't offer that if you still don't get the early reading allotment.
And what's the allotment? How much is it?
Yes, it's in, and you'll see that that's in the tier 1 calculation. Now, what's also not in here that they're still talking about is the safety and security, $10 per student, which that will formulate somewhere in this. They're not gonna give us additional money, they'll just allocate, in the funding formula how we're to take care of that too. But we're still, so right now, we're still, in limbo, we're still at their mercy, and things could change. The problem is that we have to adopt a budget within the next couple of days. So this is going to be what we call a live budget. We will probably adopt a budget at June 30th, knowing that we can do some amendments or within the next couple of months to help with these changes. And as you know, as once Governor Abbott puts it into play, it takes them 30 to 60 days to even put it into law to say what that really means. Right now, we're all just guesstimating what that means and how everyone is interpreting the bill as it reads. So normally we also have additional changes as it comes down. So
Okay.
that's the best I can tell you today. I hope to give you a little bit more information at budget. We are for truth and taxation because I have to post. We are using it at the largest dollar amount, so I'm doing everything at the largest dollar amount because we could, once I say what a dollar amount is, I can always reduce that, but once I give you a top dollar amount, which is about 84 million, is the number I'm using for expenditures, once I go, I can't go over that. I can always lower that when we adopt on
Depending on
June
what we adopt.
24th. Yes.
So you'll just post that it'll be a budget not to exceed 84 million.
Yes, and then you'll also see, because we don't have interpretation of the law, we're gonna do 2 tax rates. We're gonna do under current law and under the proposed law. So we will also have to, do that, but remember, we have a hearing on that, but we don't actually adopt the budget, the tax rate until August. So they have some time, but I do have to, post that, and I do have to, make that available.
Ms.
So
Hanson?
You'll have under current law, which is the $1.06, and under new law is 99 cents.
Okay, if we're looking at adopting the budget June 30th, are we gonna have another workshop to get the information that you're learning Wednesday and then we make a decision on the budget? Because we need to make a decision before,
Right, so I have it on the budget for, on the agenda for
June 24th.
17th, when's
June 17th.
what? Have
board
what?
meeting. So we can talk about it on the board meeting, and then I'm proposing the following Monday to be
The date for
budget and-
adoption.
Yes. So it gives you,
Where
it
is it
gives
on
y'all a little bit more chance to
June
read over
17th.
this and
know, but
make some
where is it
decisions
listed?
before we,
Oh, where is it listed on the board meeting?
it's under, I have it under, items of presentation.
Budget update.
And I can move it,
So, but,
because we're not adopting it until.
but when are we gonna make a decision about the
June
budget?
24th. June 24th, Monday, June 24th, at 5 o'clock, is when I'm proposing that we adopt the budget and.
So,
What would,
So we're gonna have our regular board meeting and then come back the following Monday to adopt the budget? Okay.
Mrs. Kim.
Mr. Redondo?
Just as individual trustee, I would ask that the administration post for a budget adoption on the 24th and the 30th, just for statutory guidelines. I don't know if we come to the Monday board meeting, we have a budget update and there's additional questions. I don't want to be obligated to
Okay.
post or to approve a budget on that following Monday. Obviously, like worst case scenario, we do it the day before the deadline. I don't think we'll have to, but I just want to make sure that we're not forced into doing anything. I think Ms. Halsey had something, because I have a lot more to ask for, so you can go, sorry.
Thank you, Tom.
Are you talking about June 27th? Because June 30th is a Sunday.
Yeah, it's like,
Worst case scenario. I mean, I just want us to have numerous opportunities to do this, because historically it's always been, well, we didn't post for it, so we have to do it tonight, because that's what we posted for.
I can, what will have to stay in effect is when I post it, we have to have the public hearing on the 24th. So we could have the public hearing, and if y'all wanna have 2 dates set forth and say, cause it has to be 72 hours, we can say that we can have one on Monday and on Thursday and Friday. I don't know if any of y'all want a meeting on Sunday, but if that's what y'all want, we'll be here Sunday.
We have to
but
give 72 hours notice of the hearing, is that what you?
Yes, we have to have 72
just
hours
do
to
it that
post
Monday.
As
You
long
know.
as it's agendized to do, again, obviously, right now, we're entertaining a $10 million withdrawal from fund balance, so I don't think another 30-minute casual conversation is gonna satisfy, at least me, when it comes to spending that kind of money.
Okay. And if you'd like to have another, after the board meeting, if you wanna have another workshop in between that date, just let me know, we can also have another workshop.
By my quick math, it looks like if we go with the first option in each of these tiers and include the insurance coverage, it would be a total deficit of 8.6 million.
About 2.2, yeah.
Right, so I am going to leave now, but I do think that my preferences would be for option A, option D, option J, and option M, which I think a 3 to 4% raise is fair, and it's a sizable deficit that I think we're going to have many conversations about how we will bridge this going forward in the next short.
We've already started working.
Is there other places you can?
Thank you.
Mr.
So I think we're fine.
Cardone, are there other places you can cut, since we've already taken care of all the personnel that have left, and that's?
We'll work on something for future.
Ms. Cantu, just as far as like staff projections and proposals, I'd like to see, I guess, an identical budget forecast projection with A, D, J, but then with M, I guess, absorbed into those 3 categories.
Okay.
I know that's just like an $11 here and there, which a follow-up question or comment to that is, if I'm an employee who doesn't take the insurance as a classroom teacher, how does that work in regards to staying in compliance? If like this is the minimum raise, but we approve a salary and benefit increase that takes that $11 out every month to cover, does it satisfy it either way? Because it's still an
I'm
increase.
gonna assume that it does, cause they're gonna say that on, that's an election if you want the insurance or not, and they're saying in the law that you can use that as part of the, calculation, so I'm gonna say yes.
Okay, and I think this is more of a undertaking as far as a request goes, but I know for the last several years we've approved positions at the request of trustees, including myself, TAs in all of our pre-K classrooms, full-time GT facilitators at every classroom, full-time art teachers, a lot of full-time positions that we didn't have that this district has historically taken away during times of budget constraints. And I would just hopefully like a listing of that,
Okay.
essentially kind of board enacted or mandated budget increases. And not to say that those positions are gonna go away, we're gonna get rid of them, but I think it's this board acknowledging during this budget process that there are some very difficult decisions that could be made to close the budget deficit. We could take away those TAs from the classrooms at pre-K. We could go back to, where we have our classroom teachers teaching art themselves instead of having full-time art teachers, which when I was in school in San Marcos CISD, they did that for a while. So again, I'm not saying we're gonna do that, but I would like us to see and acknowledge that some big portions of this budget are based on board action, and I think what this community values. I mean, I think we all value art education and music education, but it comes obviously at a price. The second request I'm gonna have, and this kind of goes to agenda prep, depending on how much this board withdraws from fund balance, is I would like to know what processes would have to take place for us to subdivide currently owned district property. So for instance, the unutilized space at LBJ minus the old Bonham campus, what this board would have to do to subdivide that lot between those two properties, and likewise with the Subtle site as well. If this board is so moved to withdraw 10 million from fund balance, I think it's an obligation of this board to try and put some of that money back in some way. So I'd like to see whatever procedural things would have to take place for us to do that. That's all I got.
Ms. Griffith, did you have anything else?
That's all I have.
Do we have dates for,
The date that she said was the 24th, did you said?
I have the public hearing and to adopt the budget on June 24th at 5:00 p.m. here in this room.
on the 24th?
Yes,
So when are we actually going to approve the budget?
the 24th.
We're gonna approve it before the hearing?
No, you have the hearing and then you can adopt, you can approve the budget. You can't do it prior to the hearing.
Okay.
And
So-
if you need a little bit more time, we can always postpone that and give you
On
72
the-
more hours.
So
to-
on our regular board meeting, we're gonna get enough information.
Yeah, we'll get
So
additional information,
We'll be ready to
Yeah.
approve a budget on the 24th.
yes.
Anyone else?
Yes, President Cantu. I have a high degree of concern about the deficit this year, but also the projections over 5 years and how we solve this long-term for the district. We can survive a year or two, like with these numbers, but the legislature thinks they've solved the problem forever with their self-congratulating press conferences and high-fiving, but I still think we're in a deep financial mess, just on account of demographics and shifting and our tax base. And so I would like to agendize for the next board meeting the creation of a standing committee or subcommittee of the board to look at long-term budget processes and decisions to provide the help we can to administration and figuring out how to deal with our financial realities. So I don't know if anyone else would be interested in putting that on the agenda, but
Just a budget advisory.
like a,
committee.
budget, rather than all 7 of us having to get together every time, maybe a subcommittee could meet once every 2 months or something.
That would be
Not
great.
in budget season, but out ahead of budget season.
Well, it should still be in budget, we should be, because that's what we were talking about this morning, is that we need to start now
Right.
for next year. So yes, it is, that would be good to start now, even with the committee talking about what we're looking at and what that looks like, and
Ms. Cantu, seeing as how that request was made tonight during what I would still assume is like agenda preparation or where that window is still open, if necessary, I would be the seconding trustee on that agenda item if you're just not gonna put it on there. So if I need to sign anything or bless anything, I will.
I think ideally, that'll make me feel better, like we're doing something.
Because
Happening.
Maybe
I think I'm just
So,
as worried as
I
I
have
was
one
before.
more comment,
That
Ms. Cantu, sorry.
the money that was gonna come in was going to help us.
No, I'm sorry.
well, it did. I mean, if you compare us to current law, it really did. I mean, you've got to look at the bright side. We would have been 12 million, we would have been a lot more deeper in the
Deeper
hole
in
had
debt.
this not, yes. So it did give us some. We just need to work through this and understand how this is going to affect us in future years and what we need to do to brace ourselves for this. We need kids.
But the long-term carnage of knocking down to 99 cents makes us even more dependent on enrollment. And so any risk to enrollment are a risk to the financial future of the district, and even more so than it was before. And I don't think that was by accident. And I don't even really know who they made happy. I mean, I heard that y'all were getting a $10,000 raise before the session started, and it looks like $1,500, you know, for at least on. I mean, that's a significant amount of money, but I don't know.
It gets
Have my-
eaten up pretty quick with
have my
taxes and
complaints.
insurance and
Sure.
teacher retirement. Once you take all the deductions, it gets little.
We also need to raise our
Any further
average daily
questions or
attendance.
comments? I'll entertain a
Bill,
motion.
before we adjourn,
Okay.
Mr. Cardona, you and I had discussed this, and it's, I think, come up, not even between you and I, but becoming an open enrollment school district.
Thank you.
And I guess making the procedures for out-of-district residents to enroll their children here more streamlined. Is that, assuming in the litany of things that we're talking about doing moving into the future, that's one of those things. Is that something that the board needs to take action on, or how does that work?
Not really. We have kids that come in from out of district currently, right now, a lot. So we do, Mr. Barton is our de facto student transfer person. But we do have kids that come in.
I'll entertain
We're
a
also
motion.
sending
move
stuff
that we
to
adjourn.
Navarro ISD.
Ms. Hanson moves that, Ms. Hanson moves that we adjourn. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Mr. McLaughlin seconds. All in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. At 6:15, more or less.